We feel that, we have the leading product on the market for supermarkets. And the only way we get there is honestly by listening to the customer and raising our hand and saying, hey, what parts of this suck? What parts of this are awesome? What should we double down on? What would you like to see? How did that feel? Put the product in their hands, right? Kind of like the taste test, and really sit in their store, in their environment, observing them, seeing where they run into product paper cuts and points of friction when they're using our handheld mobile app or when they're using the point of sale. They're ringing up a customer. Oh, the payment transaction was too slow. Being able to respond in real time and say, oh, cool, here's the notes. Next release of the product in 2 weeks or in 4 weeks, it's going to be 10% better. You keep doing that.
Welcome to this week's As Unexpected podcast, when we talk to C-suite executives, entrepreneurs, and philanthropists about how they lead into the future when the future generally goes as unexpected. I'm Scott Marshall, your host, and my own professional experience has made me a believer that it's not how you show up when all goes as planned, but it is how you show up when things go as unplanned. Given all of their experiences, each of our guests has become very attuned to the fact that the future is not to be predicted. My hope is that this podcast can help all of you become better leaders by building the core leadership capabilities for leading in an uncertain world. Hello, listeners to the As Unexpected podcast. I'm Scott Marshall, your host, and I got to tell you, I am so excited for this guest today. He is an entrepreneur. He's disrupting very old industry, maybe one of the oldest in the world, and in service to tons of small businesses. And it just is it's a profound model. It's really cool. And this is the leader of this organization. Brandon, welcome to the As Unexpected podcast. It's awesome to have you here.
Scott, thanks so much for welcoming me. This is a big moment in my life to be able to be on this podcast. I feel like this is a stage held by so many amazing people. You're an amazing guy, and excited to be able to chat and trade stories here today.
Awesome. So Brandon, before going to the heart of the story, that is what your current work is, I'd love for you just to give the listeners a sense of your background and then lead into this organization that you really started a few years ago and is breaking ground.
So I'm originally from Minneapolis, Minnesota. I'm a Midwestern guy, born and raised. I'm used to the tundra, the blizzards, the snow, and I actually, for that reason, came out to sunny, beautiful California, and that's where I did my undergrad. And I did it at Stanford University, where I really fell in love with how can we use novel technology to make a fundamental impact in underserved communities and overlooked markets. That really kind of captured my imagination when you think about using software as a force for good. So I had opportunities to, take courses at the D School, Stanford's where I learned how to code. Had internship opportunities everywhere from the White House to Google to the United Nations in East Africa. And towards the tail end of my undergraduate experience, me and a couple friends got together and, we were passionate about education, right? As a kind of like our specialty. And we thought, okay, well, what if we could build an app that could use video to help people learn in a fun and engaging format? And so we started a consumer social app called Grio that was funded by Y Combinator, Floodgate, a few other prominent VCs in the Silicon Valley landscape. And we launched a set of apps, one of which reached top 50 on the App Store, that just allowed for meaningful conversation about political events and various real world topics. We shut that down after a year and a half, couple of years, and did some soul searching as to what comes next. And that is kind of what led to Vori. And Vori is a all-in-one point of sale and inventory management platform for grocery stores. How do we make that leap? That sounds like a night and day. Well, it actually turns out my parents have been in actually, I'm third generation grocery. My folks on my mom's side of the family were in convenience retail in the state of Oklahoma. My mom and dad themselves were in the grocery manufacturer space for CPG space for over 40 years. And they met and fell in love in a grocery store, in fact.
Love it.
And Price Chopper headquarters in upstate New York. And they, through a series of job relocations, brought them to the Twin Cities metro area where they started the family. and they gave me and my co-founders the idea to start Vori.
Wow.
And they said, why is it that when we started our careers 40 years ago, the same inefficiencies existed then as do now? Why hasn't technology made more of an impact in this sector where it has in healthcare, it has in restaurants, it has in other big meaty sectors of the American economy? And that was kind of their prompt to us. And that's what led to us starting Vori, was to make the food supply chain more efficient and more equitable for everybody.
That is awesome. I harken back, 40 years, but let's call it small family grocery is centuries old, right? If not more than centuries old. The idea that a family has a small retail shop, and much of the world still operates this way. As you know well, you've seen the world and you see that it still operates this way. And that's just brilliant. First of all, the personal connection is awesome. Just brilliant. That's the source. It came from your parents, your family's history in this area. And it's still a space that is fragmented and dispersed. And, almost every outlet, I'm assuming, is idiosyncratic. So I just think your story in working on Vori, just for the audience, it's VORI.com. I want to make sure that you go there after this to see what they're doing. I'm guessing on the path to launching and now running this business, really, there's been a lot of unexpected occurrences. So if you're willing, I'd love for you to share, a couple stories around not just what happened that was not expected, but how you showed up for yourself and those around you when those things occur. Because that's the Heart and Soul of this podcast, is leadership when things go unexpected.
I have two stories that come to mind, and I think these stories may resonate with a lot of entrepreneurs, which is around how to deal with moments of, you could say, pivot, or when do you have to change strategy? And then how do you deal with moments of constrained resources like funding, right? And so those are two stories that I'll talk about. I do want to also make sure I call out that as a really core part of my identity and personal story was semester at sea, and the ability to, the life-changing experience of being able to discover myself and see so much of the world, and how the world works through then such an incredible experience, and with an amazing group of young people, really shaped who I am today as an entrepreneur and as a global citizen. And so forever grateful for the Semester C organization for the way that they incubated me and my imagination and my potential to allow me to do what I'm doing right now. So I did have to call that out. And I'm forever a champion of Semester C. I think every student should do it.
I do too. Every Stanford student.
Yeah, we need to get more Stanford students on it. We need to get more students from everywhere, man. I want my kids to do it. I think multiple people in my family have done it. My fiance has done Semester C. We're all Semester C'd out on my side.
That's brilliant. Well, next time I'm in your area, I'd love to meet you in person, because we've never met in person. We've been in touch a lot. And if your wife's or fiance, soon to be wife, is available, I'd love to meet the two of you.
We're going to sit down together. We can go through a lot of Semester C stories. She did it. She went, I want to say fall of 2019. No, yeah. Fall 2019 was her voyage. And then, I was spring 12, actually. Right. So I did it on the front end of coming into Stanford. She did it after having graduated from Stanford. Both of us on scholarships that made it possible where it otherwise wouldn't have been. And so for that, we're forever indebted, and we want to be lifelong learners. Hopefully we'll be 70 years old, sitting there on the boat, hanging out with the kids. So yeah.
Beautiful. Love it.
But back to unexpected. So the context here is, the evolution of Vori is we target and empower mom and pop grocery stores, independent grocers, which is independent grocery is a segment of the overall $1 trillion grocery industry. It's actually a third of the overall grocery market. These are your local markets. They're ran by families, small individual bodegas, all the way up to, regional chains that are family owned can be considered independent grocery. And what they lack is oftentimes the tools and the capital and sometimes the sophistication that Costco, Walmart, and Whole Foods have. So when one story that we had is, we started the product. We launched our first product, which helped mom and pop grocery stores streamline their replenishment ordering process with a simple mobile application. It goes on their phones. They could click a button and effectively reorder for the entire store. And that got very popular among independent retailers. The grocery stores would use it, and it would attract the suppliers that they would order from. The suppliers, it made their life easier as well, because now instead of getting faxes, phone calls, purchase orders coming in via carrier pigeon, now on their side, they have a clean, nice email of what grocery store A, B, and C want. And so the suppliers would invite the stores, and it became a viral phenomenon across the West Coast, growing to 600 supermarkets, in a span of only a few months.
Wow.
We kept scaling that. And the issue is we were giving that away for free as a tool to the community to then build, to figure out to build relationships and figure out what comes next. It came to a point where we asked, would you guys pay for this? And they said, no, we would not pay for this. It's like, well, but this is adding so much value to you guys, right? Like you're using it every week, you're using it for every dairy order, you're using it for every grocery order. Your staff relies on it.
And it's got to be improving their margins. It's
improving their Exactly. It's improving their margins, improving their in-stock, this app. And so we did some soul searching, like, we've got to figure out, as a business, you got to make money, right? And that's the whole thing. Where do we go from here? And we had built an entire team around this. And what happened was the store said, hey, look, what you built was awesome, but it's not enough. What we need is the rest of our 90% of our business, the inventory management side, the point of sale, how we engage with our shoppers, how we manage our pricing. We have 30,000 prices to manage as well. So yes, you took a workflow that takes us 10 hours per week and reduced it to 2 hours per week. But we have millions of dollars of inventory and hundreds of hours of labor going to all these other sections of operating a grocery store. That's where the lion's share of our time, capital, and attention go. And if you can help solve that, then we can go. Then we can, maybe we can do something. And so for us, it was so totally unexpected, because we thought that we could just build this, a beautiful marketplace that connects grocery stores, to new suppliers and to wholesalers, where you make it easier for them to order products and make it easier for them to discover new products. And that would scale. And it turned out that's not what the market wanted. And this is an important part of a lot of entrepreneurs' journeys. It definitely was part of ours. Is when you hear the market feedback, you have a few options, which is, all right, the market wants something different than what we put forth. We can ignore the feedback and keep plowing forward. It typically doesn't work. You can fold up shop and choose a different market. Or you can respond to it and say, and listen and evolve accordingly. And so we chose the third option. And so what we did is we were like, all right, we need to fundamentally understand what is it that our market wants. So we actually built out these design sprints where we were sitting and basically sleeping in these grocery stores and watching them do their receiving process. We would ask them, we did this huge set of research to understand, how do you price your products? Where do you get your products from? What systems are you using currently for these other parts of your day-to-day job that Vori doesn't cover? We were able to come to a clear understanding of what it would take to address the entire store set of problems as an operating system. And that's what we got pulled into building, was evolving from just an app for reordering to the first ever grocery supermarket operating system in the United States of America. And it was a daunting task that was laid in front of us. And we said, if we wanted to accomplish this, we'll have to dedicate 24 months at minimum to building all of this out. And it would probably cost $10 to $20 million to build. We were staring down the face of it, and it's like, we don't know if it's possible. We don't know. It could take much longer. And then how do we know that once we build it, people will actually want it? You're saying this, but how do you put money down?
Want it and pay for it.
and pay for it. That's
Because they wanted your original replenishment tool. They just didn't want to pay for it. Now you got to find something they're going to pay for.
You got to find something they're going to pay for. So in addition to the product research we did as a team, we sat and did that. We also had a parallel process to go out and effectively solicit contracts ahead of time. Like, hey, we need, or letters of intent at the very least. If we build this, we're going to have you sign on a piece of paper that when we deliver it, you're going to pay us for this service. We went out and, for over a course of several months, we ended up signing several $1 million in contracts for this ahead of even writing a single line of code. And we ended up also signing a large partnership with the nation's largest franchise of independent grocers in the country, called the Independent Grocers Alliance, who was looking for this for their 2,400 stores.
Wow. That's big. That's big.
That was a really big point of validation for us. And so we went from, I think how we led moved as a team through this was methodically. We definitely were worried, but we said, let's create the set of questions that we need to answer that would give us confidence that this move is the right move for the business. And so that was effectively our pivot, or really our expansion on top of the first app into this broader operating system that is now out in the market and growing rapidly. I'd say another unexpected moment, though, was even after we got all of that validation, we were low on funds. And I think we actually got to a point of the company almost died. We got within two payroll cycles of, maybe it was 2 or 3, basically like a month and a half of the whole thing going out. And
how long was that, Brandon? How long ago was that?
So all of this happened really in 2022. 2021, 2022. And this moment specifically was in 2022. We were going out to raise our Series A. We thought we had a really, really good story. In fact, the market at that point, the venture markets in 2021 were very frothy, it was ZIRP era, zero interest rate phenomenon, right? You had companies raising a lot of money with a little bit of traction. We felt we had great traction and a great market and this amazing validation. And so we're going to go out and raise money. But then suddenly something happened in spring of 2022 where it became a winter for venture fundraising. Like companies were dying, startups were dying left and right. Nobody was able to raise any money as I think interest rates rose. So capital became scarce. And so suddenly we thought of what would have been an easy fundraise became, start to feel like a death march. And people on the team were stressed. And in fact, a lot of people left the company at that point. They were like, maybe this is not going to work. Vori may not be able to pull off the funding. And I think what we did is we really hunkered down and, after we pitched day after day, weren't able to get anybody to bite. It was like 100. I think we pitched probably 50 different investors, all straight no's or ghosts or no's. A ghost is actually kind of more painful than a no in some ways. But then we say, who are the people that we really feel like would be strong believers and understand this? And we ended up partnering with a firm that we knew had a relationship with from Stanford called the Factory. They're an AI focused fund actually, but they had a brilliant set of partners who really just got the Vori vision, and they ended up writing a check. And what was going to be a $6 million round turned into a $10 million round, and suddenly turned into a $12 million round. And everything kind of in the span, a few short weeks after meeting them and talking with them, they kind of flipped. And I think what was super unexpected was two things in that was one, running into a huge fundraising wall. Whereas, we thought we would be able to have a successful fundraise. On the other side, really just finding those core believers who, if you try to sell a non-believer, they're going to find reasons to say no. If you find like your ideal investor profile and pitch them, they're going to find reasons to say yes. And I think that was a huge learning for us in navigating that time. So yeah, those are two stories that come to mind.
This episode of As Unexpected is sponsored in part by Semester at Sea, a study abroad program for college students and adults on career breaks, sabbaticals, or retired, interested in learning and exploring the world together. Learn more about the Lifelong Learner program at www.semesteratc.org. So there's a lot to reflect on there. What I'd really like to focus on, though, is how you showed up. You're CEO, you're founder, and you've got limited payroll sitting there. You got retention challenges, and you are persevering. So you clearly are well, going way back, you're deeply knowledgeable in the industry. You've got validation. You got a product, you got those contracts in place. And how are you showing up yourself? And how are you showing up for others during that really difficult period of time in 2022?
And it was a team effort. So my co-founders and I, we linked arms and said, what do we need to do to be able to help our team get through this, help the business get through this, help our families get through this? I think one of the things that we did was in a time like that, and especially if you're in the shoes of one of the teammates, an employee at the company at that time, you'd probably feel stressed because that's actually really tough because you also don't have many controls necessarily to help the company at that time, but you're also on the ship at the same time. So you're really reliant on the captains. And so one of the best things that we did in that moment was create transparency. And so we created like a war room. And we said I think there was multiple times per week, we would have a stand up and we say, here's the state of the fundraise. Here's all of the main points that folks are worried about. Here's the status, and then open forum for all questions. We're just going to be like, bring your toughest questions, write them down. We even create an anonymous form where you can anonymously put down questions. We're going to show up in a live, fish tank, a live meeting room, and talk through all of them. And I think it was like Monday, Wednesday, Friday of every week. We would just boom, 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 and do that. Right.
That is powerful. That is really powerful stuff. Yeah.
And it would be questions like, what's the status of the fundraise? Like why are people leaning out? What do we do if we aren't able to raise? How are you going to take care of people if how are you going to take care of the team? And so there's some folks who it just made more sense actually at that point for them to find another role. We helped them find other roles, right? And while we're trying to pull in this funding. So like, we made introductions to folks at different companies so they could find different jobs at that moment. It was really a multi-pronged effort to like create transparency, provide support where we could, and also just work diligently to get the money in. And it's interesting too, because this is not a unique story. So many companies go through this. I think SpaceX and Tesla went through multiple moments of like, hey, we're one rocket launch away from the whole company. If this doesn't go well, the whole company goes up in smoke. NVIDIA had a similar moment too, where I think they're one product launch away, only 2 months of a few single digit months of runway left. If they didn't get it right, the company would be dead. Now it's a $2 trillion company. But like you said, it's how you lead in those moments. And so for us, it was about transparency, providing an elegant way for folks to, offboard if they wanted to. And then keeping the North Star of like, we know we have something meaningful. Let's get the money so we can keep building. And I think that was kind of core to how we operated in that turbulent time.
Yeah. From what I'm hearing you say, there's two leadership traits that I value a lot and that I try to live into. You and your co-founder for clearly living into these traits. One is compassion, thinking of the other, putting yourself in their shoes and responding accordingly. Those who were staying, you met with them multiple times a week. And those who felt like they need to move on, you provided an avenue. Like you really put yourself in their place and tried to think of their context, that piece of compassion. And then courage, which in simple terms is acting when the future is uncertain, taking action. And you did that repeatedly and repeatedly. And so you were holding those traits in really awesome ways. That's such a cool story. I'd like to pivot, if we can, to a quote that I shared with you earlier, and I'd like to read and have you respond to it. It's from the book by Brene Brown, Dare to Lead. The quote goes like this: asking for help is a power move. It is a sign of strength to ask and a sign of strength to fight off judgment when other people raise their hands. It reflects self-awareness that is an essential element in braving trust.
There's different levels of application for us at Vori and me internally. I think there's me as a leader. There's us as an organization, Vori as an organization. And then there is the product and service that we're rendering to a customer. And in all three cases, I think the ability to raise the hand and ask vulnerably for feedback and for help is critically important. Me as a leader, I know there's areas of growth and there's, for me, but what those areas are, sometimes it requires a mirror. Like I won't see it myself. So being able to ask my co-founders for, where am I slipping up? Where can I get better? Right? What has been an area where you're like, dang, Brandon, I wish you would have been better in this area, as well as asking my team, like, where could I have supported you better? Or what would A plus look like in this regard? And being able to sit, listen, take it on the chin, and then improve on that. Another area that I want to get to is being able to have a leadership coach. Something I don't have right now, but being able to have a CEO coach would be really, really helpful. I think the asking for the feedback is critically important for that consistent growth. And I think it applies to the organization as a whole. We do have a board member who's, Andy, who's super, super engaged, has been super engaged and super helpful, as well as some of our other investors, and even from Y Combinator, Michael Seibel, be able to go and get sometimes tough, critical feedback. We're even talking like Mike DeBoe at Greylock, these confidants of ours, to be able to give us feedback as a set of founders and as an organization on strategy, capital allocation, hiring is super important, especially as young founders who have, haven't been in the game for 50 years. So we can learn from others who have, a set of experiences that's super useful. And then the last area is in the product. I think, our product and our service is, we feel that, we have the leading product on the market for supermarkets. And the only way we get there is honestly by listening to the customer and raising our hand and saying, hey, what parts of this suck? What parts of this are awesome? What should we double down on? What would you like to see? How did that feel? Put the product in their hands, right? Kind of like the taste test, and really sit in their store, in their environment, observing them, seeing where they run into product paper cuts and points of friction when they're using our handheld mobile app, or when they're using the point of sale. They're ringing up a customer. Oh, the payment transaction was too slow, or this or that. And being able to respond in real time and say, oh, cool, here's the notes. Next release of the product in 2 weeks or in 4 weeks, it's going to be 10% better. And you keep doing that. And then you achieve product market fit, and then you create evangelists for the product because they feel like, while you listen. And I think that thing applies to the organization and to us as leaders. That constant polishing of the stone through external feedback is kind of I think is super important. And I'm thankful for critique, because it makes us all stronger.
Indeed. I'm with you. 100%. The power move of asking for help. We all have to do it for ourselves, for the organization, for what we're trying to put out in the world. Brandon, thank you so much for your time. I'm a huge fan of the work you're doing and of you, and you've given us some precious time from a very busy life. Congratulations to you on being engaged. I wish you the best luck there, and of course, in the success in the industry. Keep it going. Thanks for your time.
Thanks, Scott. Keep changing lives out here. I huge fan of the work you do to transform young people's lives through exposure and through experiences, and through shipboard education. And so, I think, I'm excited for many more opportunities like this to collaborate.
Thanks so much. This episode of As Unexpected is sponsored in part by Semester at Sea, a study abroad program where students visit 10 countries on 3 continents, all while taking 3 to 4 college classes through Colorado State University. See course offerings and upcoming voyage itineraries at www.semesteratsea.org. Thank you for joining this week's episode of the As Unexpected podcast. The viewpoints and opinions of featured guests do not necessarily represent those of the Institute for Shipboard Education or Semester at Sea. Hit the like button, share it with your colleagues, family, and friends, and remember, be curious, be compassionate, be courageous. That's what it takes to lead as unexpected.